Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We have quite a lot of people joining the session today, which is wonderful. Good morning to you all. We'll just give a minute or so just to make sure that everyone's settled in. Hope you all have a coffee. Very essential. I hope everyone is well.
Yes.
Just have a few more people coming. Please do put in the chat who you are, where you come from. It's always good to know. I know we have some international delegates on the session today, which is great, all over the UK. So welcome to everybody. Still have a few more people to come in, and then we'll start. Hi, Hugh from Surrey. Nice to meet you. Isle of Man, lovely. Cassie, nice to meet you too. Isle of Skye, lovely. Hope it's not too windy. It's very windy in Edinburgh today.
Zambia, good morning.
Okay, I think we'll make a start. We're just after 9. So a very warm welcome to you all. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, because I appreciate you all very, very busy people. So if I could just ask as an administrative thing, is everyone could keep themselves on mute, because it's a big session today, and that will just help us run the session as smoothly as possible. So thank you so much. My name is Natasha Ure, and I'm the Senior Branch Manager based in Edinburgh in Scotland, but I'm also joined by my couple of colleagues in the background, Juliet and also Lisa will be on the call as well. I fully appreciate that professional development is a big uptake, so I'm delighted to see so many of you showing an interest in how you can take your next steps with the professional development journey with the Institute. So thank you for taking the hour, and we really hope that this is an informal, friendly, relaxed session. It's a great opportunity for us to meet you as well as you to meet us. And we also are joined this morning by Jean Poussin, our course leader, who's going to be running the session, with Mark Johnson, who is our Chartered Director, who has done the full gambit of professional development with the Institute. So he will give you top tips from his own personal experience, and it's a great opportunity to ask him lots of questions as well. So I'm just going to run through the agenda very quickly so you can understand what we're going to be discussing today. So I appreciate that many of you coming for all different reasons. Some of you may be interested in just individual modules. Some of you may be interested in the whole Chartered Director journey, and that's great. We're here to serve and help all of you. So Jean's going to give a very general introduction to the certificate and how it maps together, and the modules that are included in the certificate, and how that leads on to the Diploma in Board Performance, which is the next stage to Charter. And then we're going to hand over to Mark, as I mentioned earlier, who's going to give a really good chat, to be honest, about how his journey started and his experience and what he has learned going through the certificate, the diploma and chartered. But I appreciate that not everyone on this call will be interested in doing the chartered, but it's a great overview while you have the opportunity to hear about what the programme is all about. And then Lisa will join us a little bit later on the session, and she's here to really kind of guide you through the next steps if you are interested in taking any of the modules, the practicalities, the costs, the dates, and how you get booked on. So I genuinely hope that this will give you a really good overview of how you get started with your professional development with the IoD if you haven't already started with us. So I'm going to stop talking. I am going to hand you over to lovely Jean, who will start the session. So I hope you have a good morning, everybody.
Well, thanks, Natasha. Good morning, everybody, and very, very welcome. And thank you for making the time to sort of share this morning with us. I'm Jean Pousson. Very brief background. You can read more about me on the IoD website. I was born and educated in Mauritius, on the beautiful island of Mauritius, of French extractions, I'm French by birth. At the age of 17, I went to live and work in South Africa. And I see we have Jabulani from South Africa. You're very welcome. I spent 15 years in South Africa, and I've been out in the UK since 1989.
Thank you.
And I'll tell you this so you don't spend the next hour or so wondering where on earth is this person from, okay? So the accent has been clarified. It is not Flemish, South African, Canadian. It is what it is. I'm really sorry. Not British, by the way. Have the passport, support the right football, cricket team and all this kind of stuff. I'm one of the course leaders for the IoD and have been for many years. And for my allocated 30 minutes, we'll talk a little bit about the IoD, about directors and about the qualification. And if you have any questions, please type in the chat room and I'll stay around afterwards to pick any questions that anybody actually sort of may have. Essentially, there are three stages to this journey. The first journey is about the certificate, which we'll cover on in a moment, which can be done in modular sequence, i.e. you attend courses over 2 days and 3 days, both face-to-face and latterly virtual. Or you can do what Mark Johnson, our next speaker, did. There's a blitz where you can go for a week and you forget that you're married and you have a life and you immerse yourself over 5 days with a huge amount of pre-course work. Exams to do en route, and Lisa will talk about exams later. And once you get that done, there's a diploma and company direction, which I'll talk about in a moment. And finally, the qualification itself, which is a portfolio of experience that you have to produce. I think the first thing to say here is this. This is an odd qualification in the sense that most qualifications, you have to qualify before you're allowed to practice medicine, dentistry, and all the rest of it. Here, you are already a director and you qualify in retrospect, so to speak. So it makes it perhaps slightly different. And that's why the Privy Council, which awarded the IoD the Royal Charter, actually dictated that the qualification has to be a basic of knowledge, of application of knowledge and experience. And this is how the program is structured. The certificate is about knowledge. Do you know stuff? The diploma is about can you apply the stuff? And 3, tell us about your experience, and more on that a bit later. A word from the sponsors. This was launched in 1999. There was a spate of corporate scandals in the UK, and the IoD, as the voice of directors, I mean, they used to do courses and stuff, but they realized we actually have no qualification here. Nobody is qualified to be a director, and so we should do something. So they started the program, which now runs all over the world. I've been in the Isle of Man a few times. I've been in Malta a few times, where we launched it in Malta, and we run it in Peru, in Chile. We did it in Russia until about 2 months ago, and you know why. So we have taken it pretty much throughout the world. But in addition to the program, there's a whole range of suites of programs that we do that you may want to have a look at. But I think what's worth saying is all your tutors are practice directors. And again, re-emphasizing the fact that this is a qualification based on experience. And there's also a board evaluation service, which is not the preserve of multinational FTSE listed companies, but it's about reviewing the effectiveness of your board. We've done board reviews with charities, with housing associations, with clubs, with sporting bodies, small to medium-sized enterprises. So it's about really making the board work better. A few of us were involved in this a couple of years ago, and it was a case of what does it take to be a director? And if you go on the IoD website and if you have a look and just Google competency framework, this will come up. And quite a few of us were involved in this, into working out, well, what are the qualities, what are the capabilities required of a director? And what you'll find is if you go on the IoD website, you can actually self-test yourself. You can actually just see how you perform. The content of the syllabus, the examination and the ultimate qualification has this as its root base in terms of this is what you need to be a director. And what you'll see from 10.2 to 10 past are the 4 key technical modules which are covered in the certificate, which I'll come on to in the meantime. So if you take nothing away from this morning, please go and have a look at this, self-test yourself and your board members. You'll find that a really, really good exercise, I promise you. So the technical programs, well, the certificate has got 4 modules. And again, from earlier, you can attend them in parts, sequentially, and you can write the exam after each one, or you can, and it's face-to-face or virtual, and you also can attend the condensed 1 week blitz, as I call it. The first module, it doesn't have to be the first module, but the one people choose to attend first is the role of the director of the board. And this is not legalese, although we do cover aspects of law, we cover aspects of governance, we cover things like board processes, board etiquette, how to get the best value out of your chair, out of the company secretary, out of the non-executive directors, issues of board dynamics and the like. So it's something which directors find really, really useful, and it's a strong currency in terms of your toolkit to actually become a director. Because no one teaches you to be a director. I guess it's like parenting. For those of you who have children, when you bring your first child home, your sense of elation is matched with a huge, overwhelming sense of responsibility. Oh my gosh, I have this little thing now which I have to look after. And you can read all the books, and your parents normally have forgotten what it's like to have kids. It's actually up to you to run the thing. So that's why this is a really formative module in terms of what's expected of you as a director. The finance program, which is something that I run, or I co-run with my colleagues, is just that. It's not to make you accountants. It's not about numbers. It's about helping you understand the intricacies of finance. It's about understanding the story behind the numbers. It's about being able to contribute to board discussions. It's about making sure that you spot any issues which perhaps are concerning, because you know very well, every business, every decision in business, or every non-decision in business has a finance impact. We like to quote the former chief executive of Danone, the French food giant, who said, "Finance without strategy is just numbers, but strategy without finance is just dreaming." And some of the feedback we get from the finance course are things like, "I wish I had done that 10 years ago." It's about engaging you into discussions and helping you contribute more to board meetings, which is one question which we always ask when we do board reviews. Is each director contributing outside his or her sphere of competence, or are they staying in their lanes? Because duty bound, you really should contribute to everything. We talk a bit about strategy, and there's a very practical approach to this. And many people tell us, "Oh, I have an MBA, I don't need this." Well, this is a bit different. Your typical MBA is geared for a 30-something with a first degree, with some management experience, and it's about preparing the person for higher office. This has a very director board focus onto it. And especially in times of increased uncertainty, as we currently live, as we keep telling our customers, hope is not a strategy. So there has to be some rigid tools and some rigid applications of strategy. The leadership program talks about, well, leadership, but couch with a very strong board mentality. We look at board dynamics. We look at why boards fail, why do boards malfunction, and just because you assemble a team of highly paid, highly intelligent and motivated directors doesn't automatically mean that the board will operate well. And we have plenty of evidence in this. And we're all practitioners, as I said, and I know I speak for all my colleagues here at the IoD, but typically we would interface anything from 400 to 500 directors a year. We typically would work with about 8 to 10 boards a year as consultants, in addition to our board experience. And we also can claim that we've taken this internationally to many, many countries. Personally, I've worked in my time as a consultant in well over 34 countries. So this is, I hope, that what we bring to the table. I had a lovely feedback once from a chap who came on my finance course. He said, "Jean, I came on this course terrified and confused. I leave equally terrified and equally confused, but about more important things." And I took it as a bit of a compliment. see what we have next. Aha. So this is the audience participation bit. A poll's come up, and if you'd like to actually click in your choice, please. In a company that is a going concern, to whom does a director primarily owe their duties to? And it's a single choice answer, by the way. So if you'd like to tap in your responses, and we'll see what you come up with. Juliet, about 20 seconds, yeah, also?
Yep, we'll just give it a couple more seconds. People are still ferrying away. Mm.
Okay, so the results are shared, okay? So we have 49% to shareholders, 0 to fellow directors, 36% to the company, employees and creditors. The correct answer is to the company. As a director, your duty is to the company. As we keep telling our clients, board committees advise, boards decide, shareholders approve. Your duty is to the company. In law, your duty is to the company, and you can sense all the issues which that can cause when you have multiple directorships or if you're part of a group. And these are conversations that certainly we do have on the program. So what's a director? This is the legal, I'll just rush through these, otherwise it's just so sorry. In law in this country, anybody over the age of 16 can be a director. And the legal definition is any person occupying the position of director or whatever name. De jure means by right, by legal implication. We have executive directors, we have non-executive directors, more on that later. We have very, very often, we have people who have the title director, but who are not main board directors, and that causes certain issues. We have alternate directors, where people literally take turns to attend board meetings, if allowed by the Articles of Association. And we have nominee directors. This is where a major shareholder, for example, will actually appoint somebody into the board. On the course, we also talk about the issue of what we call shadow director or de facto director. The Companies Act is very clear. It talks about director and other persons. If the situation of your organization is such that you have influence on decision-making of the company because of your proximity to key decisions, the law may decree you have become a director. You may not have the title, but we have decided that by virtue of your actions, by virtue of your influence mostly, you have become a director, and all the laws and duties actually will apply to you. So it's not just the narrow population of directors, it can be broadened. And if we have time later, I'll give you some practical example. In the UK, the duties of directors are embodied in the Companies Act of 2006. And if you follow the clock, this is sections 171 to 177. And every director should read this. To act within powers which are dictated by the Articles of Association, which is one of the formation documents. If you act outside of the powers, there's a whole race of issues, and we call this ultra vires. A key message that we give our directors is be prepared to do more. There are codes of compliance, there are regulations, and there are laws, but like a medical doctor, in the old days, doctors were asked to read the Hippocratic Oath from Hippocrates. And one of the key messages of the Hippocratic Oath is, above all, do no harm. Above all, do no harm. As we keep telling our clients and our delegates, the easiest way, the right way, is always the easiest way. Section 172 is about promoting the success of the company. Sorry, the question there, this is sections 172 to sections 177 in the UK Companies Act of 2006. Just Google section 171 Companies Act and you'll see this thing comes up, which was a question in there. Section 172 is about promoting the success of the company. We call this the agency principle. Shareholders entrust you with their capital, and you as a board of directors have to manage that money for them. Admittedly, very often shareholders are also directors, so it's about shareholder value. Although society, regulations, and increasingly the law are expecting companies and boards to actually have a more stakeholder approach, because it was felt the shareholder value was perhaps too narrow and started causing harm and damage to society as a whole. So we now talk about engagement with the vast majority of shareholders, hence all the ESG moves and the like. And on that note, a really good question to ask yourself after each board meeting is the following: how have we added value to the organization today? How have we added value to the organization today? Because this is what you are there for as a board of directors. And number 3, or section 173, it's about exercising independent judgment like a jury member. Like a member of a jury in a court trial, you must leave behind your prejudice, you must leave behind your bias, and just look at the fact and make an intelligent decision on behalf of the company and ultimately for the shareholders. 174, to exercise reasonable care, skill, and diligence. And we make the point on the finance course, nobody expects you, if you don't have finance qualifications, to be as au fait with finance as the CFO or the finance director. Of course not. The purpose is not to turn you into accountants, but there are things that you have to do. There are questions that you have to ask to discharge your duty. Avoid conflict of interest, present, future, and potential future. That's obvious. And don't accept benefits from third parties. That's fairly obvious. And we have the Bribery Act in this country of 2010. And every board meeting should begin with a declaration of interest. If you're conflicted, if you have any kind of interest, to make sure that there's transparency, there's openness, and that integrity at the board meeting means just that. Another little poll to get you working. So this one, there are multiple choices. There's more than one answer.
Just give it a couple more seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Busy reading.
Aha. So we have 60% is one amongst equals. We have 91% to provide constructive challenge for the board, and a smitter of answers here or there. Well, the correct answers is number 1 and 3. As a non-executive director, you are equal to everybody else. Actually, in fact, the UK Companies Act does not mention non-executive director. You are a director or not. Collective responsibility, one person, one vote, which makes the choice of a non-exec really awkward, because you have the same responsibilities as an executive, but you have no power. Yeah. Exists primarily? No, it doesn't. It's good to have, but in terms of compliance, you don't have to have. And also the compliance regime is not legal, but you have to explain, if you are regulated by a code of compliance, why don't you comply and the reasons why not, and the market will decide whether they like your view or not. To provide constructive challenge, that's where you earn your money as a non-executive director. You are sometimes the conscience of the company. You are there to act as devil's advocate. You are there to challenge, to contribute, and to promote. This is what you are there for. And if the company is big enough to have board committees, that's where the non-executive directors earn their money, on the work of the committees, to actually bring the board to account in a constructive and in an intelligent way. For me, the 2 primary qualities of a non-executive director, besides experience and what they bring to the board are independence, and I mean true independence and curiosity. I think a chair should always want a non-exec curiosity element coefficient should be a KPI, and chairs should watch very, very carefully. And I talked earlier about doing better than. The UK Corporate Governance Code, which applies to listed companies only, although there are a few other codes for non-listed companies, but suggests that a non-executive director should not serve for more than a continuous period of 9 years, because you might get too comfy, you might get too cozy, and you might start to lose your curiosity and your independence element. I don't know about you, but I reckon you've gone native long before 9 years. I don't know when that time is, and this is where the chair should spot that the behavior of the non-exec has become a bit different. They begin to relive their executive duties, and maybe it's time for that person to move on. And so anyway, and this is something which we discussed a lot in the role of director, about getting value out of your non-executive director. And there's actually a course on being a non-exec at the IoD that you may want to have a look at the website. So once you pass the certificate, which is a multiple choice exam, we assemble you on what we call a board performance. Essentially, you attend a 3-day course where typically 2 of us would run it, and we are more facilitators than lecturers, if that makes sense, where you run a succession of board meetings. And it's a great risk-free environment to practice your skills, to actually mess up a little, because we are amongst friends, but it's about really the practicalities and the application of everything. There is no new learning in the sense that there's no new content in the diploma. And if you recall my earlier point, the certificate is about knowledge. This is about application of knowledge. So it's a kind of fun 3 days. And the exam, which Lisa will talk about later, is where you drive the content in answering a case study. But it's application of knowledge that people have found extremely, extremely useful. We've actually had people over the years who are chartered directors, and they come back on this. Not for the exam, because they've done that, just to refresh themselves, just to have a bit of an MOT, a bit of a practice run. For international delegates, MOT is a certificate of roadworthiness that cars have to go through on a kind of regular basis. That's my allocated 30 minutes or so. I think I have 1 or 2 3-minute spares, just to catch up any question that people have. We talked about that. One earlier question: as a director, your duties are to the company. It's, again, committees, if you have committees, advise, boards approve, the boards decide, shareholders approve, but your duty is to the company. There was also another question earlier about government bodies. It may not have the same legal force, but in principle, your duty is to the body. And non-limited companies typically would have a charter, would have regulation, which would dictate the role of the directors. And if you don't have a board charter, or if you have a board charter, I would urge you to get very, very familiar with it. And the Charity Commission, for example, in the UK, public sector bodies have their own versions of corporate governance that, if you are in that position, do make yourself familiar with, because it's kind of important. And on that note, I will say goodbye for now, but I will stay behind to answer any questions that you may have. To introduce Mark, who I had the pleasure of working with a few years ago. Mark is a qualified chartered director, and he will share his views in terms of his experiences, and beginning with why he chose the chartered directorship and the experiences that he can share with you. Over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Sean. And good morning, everyone. And it's really great to see so many people on the call this morning. So thanks for taking the time to join us. So give you a bit of background about me before I launch into the chartered director side of things, or the certificate side of things. So I've worked in manufacturing and engineering organisations for all of my career. Started off at apprentice level, was able to get through to a managing director position, and various director positions since then. And largely throughout my career, wanting to better myself and develop myself, finished kind of the postgraduate and formal education in about 2001, and in about 2017 was director of technology for a company called Advanced Fibre Optic Engineering in Carterton in Oxfordshire, and was really, as I'd gone through my career, always had a bit of a blind spot with regard to finance. Had been on other courses before, finance for non-financial managers and that type of thing, and these were internal courses as well as external courses, but it never really given me what I sought and what I needed. I thought I needed as a director. So I looked into the Institute of Directors and looked at their Charter Director program, and hadn't really planned on getting into the Charter Director program or something of that magnitude before. But the finance module of the certificate ticked all the boxes for me personally. And so I decided to join the Institute of Directors and get on the certificate program. And I thought I'd do the certificate and then decide on if I wanted to continue on to the diploma and then the Charter Director, the full Charter Director qualification. So that was the reason why I joined up, is really the finance side of things. And just to give you an insight into, there's two ways you can do the certificate program. You can either do it in a block, which is 6 days. So it's quite intensive. You're with the same people throughout that course, and the different demographics of people that you meet on these courses, as we have on the call today, is fantastic. And that's really I think that's part of the jewel in the crown of really this type of experience and this type of course, because it is an experience as well, is the people that you meet on the course. You know, you're clearly not going to have big long-term friends with everybody, but even today there's certain people from back in 2017 when I did this course that still very much in contact with and meet with on a regular basis in a professional capacity today. So starting the course and doing the financial side of things, I really, my target really was to want to really read into the relationship between balance sheet and profit and loss and cash flow analysis, and understand how to just be able to pick up those documents and read them and understand them, and understand a bit of the history of where those documents have come from. So that was kind of my objective really. And yes, not being a finance person by training, it was a bit daunting, but Jean and the team and also others that are supporting the environment as well as the course itself, it's done in such a way that's very accessible and something that is going to be daunting for everybody, but it is a very accessible qualification and course. After doing that level of course, and after thankfully passing the certificate after the exam, which is also slightly daunting, I decided to go through the whole program with the 3-day course and then the final interview. So this is your it's basically a career history and your skills history that you write up, and then you go through and have an interview with other chartered directors, 2 other chartered directors, and then you're passed through that program. So from, let's say, September 2017, when I started that one, did the certificate, and I qualified in February 2019, and that was quite a a campaign that I had. I wanted to get through it and get it done, but clearly there's other ways of doing it as well. You can do it over a lot longer period. So the other thing that I saw with regard to the whole Chartered Director qualification was, yes, I was a relatively experienced director. I'd been a director and had my name on company accounts for a number of years, and managed to interpret with challenge, etc., some of the financial accounts as well as other areas of the business. But this whole experience was really a consolidation of all of those skills. So some of the things that a lot of the things that I already knew were good to go through and refresh again. But a lot of the content in there is very up to date. It's continually being updated. So it's a very good way of consolidating all your knowledge and experience, as well as being able to learn new things. And that consolidation really is part of proving to yourself, but also others, that you are at a level where you can operate as a director in the UK and globally, to be fair. And that was the reason why I wanted to wrap this up in the qualification, really. And since joining the IoD, meeting lots of other people through these courses. There's also the digital academy that you can go and have a look at as a member, to get some other tasters of courses that lead onto the certificate and the other courses towards the Chartered Director status. So there's a hell of a lot to go at. I think from my personal experience, it was, I feel as though I've got the gold standard with regard to the chartered, with the Chartered Director to being a director in the UK. And I think the experience of doing that has definitely improved my capability as a director and acting on the board that I act in. So I wanted to open up, that's a bit about me and why I chose the Chartered Director programme and the course towards it. Does anybody have any questions for me? You can either speak to me or put them in the chat.
Perhaps, Mark, just whilst we wait for questions to come, in terms of application, I kept talking about application and experience. In terms of applications to your board, maybe you could talk us through sort of what takeaways you actually took on board to your board, and the practicalities and the benefits of the qualification would be useful, perhaps.
Yeah, sure. So I think the governance, clearly the IoD is known for its governance. There were some practical experiences that I had with the board in bringing what I'd learned, certainly from the governance side of things, into the board. And some of the governances of how we ran the board meetings, how we switched around the chair of the board meetings on a regular basis, and switched up some of the experiences of some of the other directors on the board. We don't have a large board. There's 5 of us, including 1 non-exec director. So, and in the sales and marketing side of things as well, we were very much a company, although I'd had sales and marketing experience before in my career, we were very much a company that wasn't really proactive at its sales. We were lucky enough that we had a lot of companies that come to us for our particular specialist custom services, so and manufacturing and engineering. So a lot of that strategic look at how to position ourselves in the marketplace since doing that course has proven to be very beneficial as well.
That's good to hear. There's a question from Anisha that you probably see, Mark. Yeah.
Yes.
And following one from Michael.
Do you think this element might, so I'll read the question out. You mentioned the benefit of getting to know people you went through the course with. Do you think this element might be diminished through the online offering? I think you said you did the cert course in 1 week. Was that very intense? Thank you, Michael. So yes, it is intense. Not gonna put any punches on that one. It is quite a pacey week that you go through because there's a lot of material to get through. But I was kind of prepared for that because I knew that I wanted to get something that was already split up into modules done in a very condensed manner. It's not for everyone. I would certainly, if you want to get through the program in a certain amount of time, like I did, I had a target of when I wanted to complete it. Then it's a good way of doing it. But equally, the individual sessions, you're going to meet a different set of people on each of those sessions. So your breadth of meeting people is going to be a lot larger. The online sessions, I haven't actually been involved in any online sessions, but what I would say from over the last couple of years being involved with the IoD and having some connect meetings and that type of thing, you can connect with people at a virtual level, but then it's up to the individual to really make those type of connections. There's a little bit more that you have to do to make those connections, but I would say that it's equally beneficial. I think we have to give that, as the IoD, we have to give that opportunity to do online as well as physical, and I think that continues. So yeah, I would say both are good, but admittedly, you would probably have to work a little bit harder at those connections if you were in an online scenario.
Just to add to that, the point that Mark made, and thank you for asking the question, Michael. We, after every 2 or 3 day course that we run, we do a little poll at the end to ask people on reflection, was the online experience okay? Would you have preferred face-to-face? And we're getting very, very mixed messages, I have to say. The last one I did about 8 weeks ago, the Omicron variant thing had dissipated to a large degree. And after the course, I had about 18 online, one person from Spain, but everybody else was UK based, and I asked people, would you have preferred face-to-face or online? And the results were 60-40 online preference. So I guess the market is adapting. It suits some people, it doesn't suit everybody. And as a consequence, the IoD has responded, you now have both options. And you have both options, and you could argue you have a third option with a concentrated week as well.
Anika, we missed a question from Anika actually, which was, do you feel that doing the intense course, that the information embedded, or do you feel it might have been advantageous to do it in modules? For me personally, I think the intensity of the week, you get some very, very good course notes along with it to look at and certainly revise during your evenings off during the course. But I think it depends on, everyone's different, right? Everyone learns in a different style. So I think for me it was good to get the intensity of that course done, and clearly the material is you can reference in the future as well. But I just found it advantageous to do it that way. So I think before looking at from Anika, from your point of view, before looking at the course, you know, have a think about the way you feel that you learn, and maybe it might be better to do it. You might feel the same way as me, that you want to do it more intensively, or doing it within the modules is equally good. I hope that helps.
The question is from Joseph.
What do you think you have gained from the course that you feel you may not have gotten from similar courses, or if you continued without doing the course? Good question. So certainly, as I mentioned on the finance side of things, I think my ability pretty instantly after doing the finance course, my ability to be able to look at the relationship between profit and loss, balance sheet, cash flow, which might seem obvious to some people on the call, but certainly hadn't had any formal education with regard to that. And being able to understand the story around those documents as well, and being able to interpret and that is very good to take forward into the diploma, where you're looking at case studies of businesses that have had, you know, all you have really to have a look at the P&L and balance sheet and have to determine what could be the let's say the metrics that you're seeing to the history of the company itself. So I think that was a large takeaway from me, because that was something that I really went into the course to do. I think overall it rounded me more as a director. I think some of the modules might sound quite dry, like leadership. You know, what are you going to be taught within the leadership module of a course? But the way that's broken down, and it's not just about the leadership, but it's almost some of the models that you get coming into what makes good leadership, and the leadership as in association with corporate governance as well, and the importance of the legal responsibilities of being a director. So some of that was, unless you're taught it, unless you do the role of the director as a separate course within the IoD, which is also available, that was quite enlightening in some of those areas as well. So I think the overall experience of meeting other people and meeting fellow directors is good, but the actual course content helps to round you, certainly rounded me as a director, and has had benefits to my board. Thank you, Joseph. Andrew. Did the week include the exams, or did you take these later? And if the latter, what was the overall elapsed time for the course plus the exams? So for the certificate, from memory, so a week long, you don't do the exams on the course. What you have to do is book, excuse me, post the exams. So once you finish the course, you then book the exams, and that can be, I think the advice is to try and take them within about 6 weeks of finishing the course. and so that's what I did. And each module has a separate exam, and they're all multiple choice. I hope that answers your question, Andrew. Jeff, that's a good question. So what percentage of director roles seek certified directors? So the IoD has a partnership with a company called New Role, which is a director level recruitment company. I personally haven't had any experience with those guys yet, but from reports, it's been a really good partnership so far. And what the IoD is seeking to do, because the chartered director is almost a hidden jewel, you know. About, you know, all of these ways, and really this is about leveling up the level of directors and what it takes to be a director in this country and around the world. Now, I don't know what the percentage of director roles seek certified directors, but the IoD is certainly starting in this year, running these courses and trying to engage people in taking part in these courses, but are also in the background trying to marry this qualification with a national standard, because yes, if you were to go to an interview now and you said you had a chartered director, you would probably have to explain what that was to a lot of employers. And that's not the reason why, certainly I did it, was not to sort of instigate getting a pay rise or having something that I could go next to my next job with, although I'm sure that's, you know, that would be beneficial. So it's something that's, although it's been around for the best part of over 20 years, I think, and John or someone else can correct me if that's incorrect, but it's still a sought after, clearly from the amount of people that are on the call today, it's still a sought after qualification for directors who want to better themselves. But I think there is a bit of a gap there that we're trying to close, which is making it more well known. You know, there's other courses that you can look at. I did, when I searched around for the courses that I wanted to do, I looked at the Financial Times one, and that didn't really give me what I wanted after looking at that in a lot more detail. And I think the differences with those types of courses are, this is almost an experience as well. So you don't just pay your money, go on the course. It really is teaching you and helping you mold into a more rounded director. So I can't tell you, Jeff, the exact percentage, unfortunately, but I'd like to do that. But I think we're working towards getting it much more well known in the UK, certainly, firstly.
So, Mark, if I can just add to that.
Yeah.
One of our fellow consultants applied for a non-executive position, and he got it, and he got the job and the rest of it. And once he was settled in, he said, "Why me? Why did you pick me above everybody else?" And he was told, well, over 100 people applied. He made it to the short list. But in the end, what tilted it in his balance was he was a recently qualified chartered director. And I think what HR recruiters tell us and what we hear from industry is this: if I have two candidates, one is a chartered director and one is not, it tells me two things. The chartered director is definitely up to date with current practice. The other person may be, but that's that. But more to the point, that person, despite having a busy job, found the time, as Mark did, to go on courses, write exams at this stage of their lives, tells me something else about that person. That person is serious about his or her learning. And I think that's something worth taking on board as well.
Yeah, that's a good point, John. Have we got time for a few others? Neil has posted, have your fellow board members commented on any wider learning for them that they gained from your journey? Not my fellow board members, but certainly the managing director has. And I think the formalizing and the format of our board meetings I've had some influence in since being a chartered director, and certainly the marketing strategy and the sales strategy for the business. I transferred from, so during doing the course, actually, no, after doing the course in 2019, I transferred from Director of Technology to Commercial Director. And that was as a part of, and we had someone promoted within the business to take over as Technical Director. That role was changed to that. I was initially brought into the business to look at ways in which we could apply fibre optics and optoelectronic technology to new industries. Me being from the aerospace and automotive, the company had not really made any inroads into that. And as part of that role, we're now on a £4 million development program with Boeing, developing a fuel quantity indication system for those guys. And I'm not saying that was part of being the chartered director, but certainly the detailed analysis of our markets and looking at where we could really focus our time. We're quite a lean organization, but really focusing our time and being able to meet up with Boeing and like all these things, you know, sometimes it's right place, right time. But if we weren't at that particular stage with visible to Boeing at that stage, then it could have been someone else. So I think that's something that you can, it's an example of where it gives you the confidence to understand and use the tools and techniques that you learn on the course to be able to really apply those things in your own boards and for your own company's futures. Thanks, Neil. I hope that's answered the question.
Mark, we might just have one more time for Dan's question, which I think is a really good one. It's just asking, out of the 4 modules, you know, and also having done the diploma, was there a light bulb moment? Was there a bit that you did when, oh, okay, jigsaw puzzle?
Yes, but the latter part of his question was light bulb when you realised that not all directors operate morally, which I think is an interesting one. Thank you, Dan. So I think we all know that not all directors operate morally, and it's our jobs as with the moral compass of wanting our companies to be the best that they can be, without having lost your moral compass. So there wasn't a light bulb moment as far as that was concerned, but I think for me, finance was, and I keep going back to it, but the finance side of things was a real key reason why, and it was probably about 3/4 of the way through, because during the course, you'll set these tests at the end of every section. You'll set a test where you go through, and it's almost reinforcing what you've already learned in the last, let's say, hour and a half. And so that's quite an intensive but a really good way of progressing through and making sure that things are sinking in. And I think it was when it all came together about 3/4 of the way through, when we were given a case study, and I read through and mapped out all of the P&L and balance sheet, and it all clicked into place. And ever since then, it's just clicked, and I've been able to do that ever since, which I'm really pleased about. So if I only took one thing away, that was definitely the thing for me, where it all just clicked into place in about 3/4 of the way through the finance module. And one other thing, the question about who is a director most responsible for, you'll get taught about looking after the baby. So the company is the baby, and the director's responsibility is to make sure that it's fed and watered, and that's your responsibility as a director, to make sure that the company as a separate entity is something that you keep alive. Thanks for the question, Dan.
Thank you so much, Mark. And I'm sure we've probably missed a couple of the questions, but we can absolutely answer those and stay online to make sure that everyone's happy they've had their questions answered. Thank you so much for your time, Mark. It's brilliant to have you and all your advice that you've given us. No problem. We will, if you don't mind staying on the call there, that would be lovely. Yeah. And Lisa, my colleague Lisa, is now just going to talk us through some of the very practical things, because I know they've been asked quite a lot in the chat, and hopefully we will be able to answer all those questions too.
Thank you so much, Natasha, and thank you to Jean, Mark, obviously, for joining us today. So I have quite a lucky job, and that Jean, Mark have done such a good job already. So a lot of this has been covered, but I'll just do a quick overview. Jean talked about the Digital Academy and the self-assessment tool that it has. So for those of you who don't know, we've recently launched a new website and internally a CRM system. And as part of that, we have a new Digital Academy as well. So the IoD Digital Academy it's an interactive learning tool, really. Within that, there's a self-assessment that really utilises that director competency framework. You can answer a short questionnaire. It takes about 20 minutes. And at the end of it, it will really identify areas, for you, for your growth, based on your experience and your knowledge. So we would strongly recommend all of our members to do that, but specifically people who are thinking about embarking on that professional development journey. Also on the Digital Academy, a few people have asked about past paper questions. So for our course delegates, on that you will have access to all of the materials you need for your course and your exam. So you will have your course handbook, quite a beefy document, but I would recommend reading it from start to finish in preparation for your exams. There are all of the handouts, all of the slides. There are also past paper questions, which are really, really useful. There is a video of some of our course leaders going through some of the past paper questions. So it's all there. It's all available on this Digital Academy. Mark probably mentioned as well, we encourage people to keep up with their CPD. Our chartered directors specifically have to demonstrate at least 30 years CPD per year to keep their chartered director status. Now, this might be attending events like today, for example, that would qualify for CPD. It might also be reading some of our thought leadership pieces on the Digital Academy. So a really useful CPD tracker there too. Next slide, please, Natasha. We've talked a good bit about exams today. Just to start at the beginning, the certificate, 4 modules. Each of those modules has an exam, 45 minutes, 16 questions, multiple choice. Multiple choice to me, 20 odd years ago in university, sounded easy. This isn't quite as easy. It requires a good bit of thought. It requires preparation and practice of those past papers. I would say that you would need probably, I would always recommend a good 2 full days to prepare for one of the certificate exams. Sean might disagree. I would say, please complete them as soon as possible after you've completed the module so that information is fresh in your head. Some people have asked in the chat there about how long you can complete the certificate in. That really comes down to personal preference. Some people like to, like Mark, do the intensive 5.5 days and then complete their exams as soon as possible afterwards. The exam dates are pre-published on the website, so you'll find there'll be maybe 2 or 3 certificate exam dates a month. Some people like to do 2 in a day. Some people like to just, stick to the one, get it done and prepare for it really well. It is entirely down to you. What I would say from personal experience and from so many of our delegates going through, if you can aim to complete the certificate in 2 years, that information is current, it's relevant, and you're probably more likely, Mark has talked about it, you're more likely to bring that knowledge back to your organisation or your board and apply it. Keep up that momentum. Also, it's important to note there are syllabus reviews. So the course that you have attended, the material in that is only valid for a certain amount of time as well until the syllabus review takes place. So be mindful of that. That's the certificate exams. For exams, once you've completed all of those, you can progress to your diploma. Your diploma, as we've talked about, is really the application of everything you have learnt in the certificate. Now, that 3-day course is, I would say it's nearly as intense as the accelerated certificate. It is very much practical, case study based learning. It's peer learning as well. You are, it's not as much taught as it is working in groups with real sort of board simulation. And the exam is no different to this. So the exam's 3 hours, 15 minutes. And you will basically be given a case study that you must read, much like a comprehension, I suppose, in school. And I actually, when I was listening to Mark there, I thought about a few things I wanted to get across about the diploma exam. So when I'm talking about the application, you'll get a case study and you will be asked to, maybe work out some ratios. So those ratios might be a return on investment, it might be a return on capital. It's something that you as a director have been able to critically analyse in that set of board papers that you have been given. So we talk about wearing different hats. So you might come into this as a finance director, but equally you might come into this as a former operations director who maybe finance isn't your strong suit. but you have been taught within that finance for non-finance directors module to look at a set of accounts and say, what is jumping out at me here? What do I need to mark as relevant as my role as a director on this board? So you look at the finance, there might be some conflicts of interest. Sean talked about it at the start. You know, the first piece on an agenda of a board meeting should be, are there any conflicts of interest? Has something jumped out at you from that case study that doesn't quite sit right with you ethically? Then you look at the strategy. In your role as a director on the board, it is your responsibility to set that long-term strategy and ensure it's implemented in the organisation. So what in that case study would you recommend? How would you recommend this business moves forward? What strategy would you suggest, or strategies? And then looking at the leadership as well. You know, people have asked, what learning have you taken back to your board? You will all know the different board dynamics, the different leadership styles. So the leadership module, Mark did touch on it. It's not, I have done leadership qualifications in the past. It's looking at it from a very different angle. It's looking at it from your role as a director on that board. So what leadership styles would you adopt to implement that strategy? And why are you implementing that strategy? Because you have identified there was a dip in profits between year 1 and year 2. So it all just ties it together really, really nicely in that diploma. So that's the diploma exam. Just moving on to the next slide. If anybody has any other exam related questions, they're all online via an external third-party platform. They can be booked via us. The exams are very straightforward, but the key message here is please complete them when the information is relevant, so that you're not having to revisit material from a year or more ago. There are a few prices up there. They're IoD member rates. I personally like to talk in round numbers. The certificate, you're looking at about £10,000. Now that is irrespective of whether you're completing it modularly, accelerated, residential, or online. You are paying for the qualification in and around £10,000. The diploma, 3.5. These all include exams, by the way, and they are not paid for separately. And then the final stage, the Chartered Director interview and portfolio, that's more of an administration fee. And we will work with you. We will give you the templates. We have a Chartered Director team here in the IoD who can walk you through that. So there's prices. The prices will always be available on the website. If you need any further information on those, just let me know. I will pop my contact details in the chat here too. And I think that's all. I'm just going to double check the chat, if you don't mind, to see if there's any outstanding questions. As well as the prices, you'll find all the dates on our website for both the modular, online and accelerated, and then also the accelerated ones. Now the accelerated are, Mark has completed it. I was lucky to visit one in Northern Ireland when Jean was delivering the strategy module quite a few years ago now. It suits some people, it suits some people's learning styles. I would advise you to have a conversation with myself or one of the team before you embark on the accelerated, just to make sure that you're at the right stage in your career and you have the right level of knowledge just to go through. For example, the strategy or the finance module is 1.5 days in the accelerated, but 3 days in the modular. So just have a think about what your particular learning style is. Let me just check this chat. Cost of exams is included, yes. Recording, yes, yes. Yes, in terms of accessibility, absolutely. And that might be in terms of what way you would need to access and read the learning materials, if it's font print, things like that. Digitally, face-to-face, yes, we do have provision for disabled candidates. I can send you our accessibility, what's the word I'm looking for? Outline, if you like, no problem. Cost and exam questions, yes. If anybody has any questions about practicalities, exams, next steps, when we'll have 2023 dates available? Very soon. Very soon. That's something we tend to do our scheduling in the summer months, and they will be going on the website. If not, and you want to drop me an email, I will absolutely keep you posted with those. And a note on the dates, we have courses run in Pall Mall, but we also have courses run throughout the UK. We get a lot of international delegates international delegates will go all over for the accelerated and online as well. So there will always be a date, a time, a venue to suit you. If not, let us know. You know, we're happy to look at anything. So once you begin the certificate, please remind me when you suggest a timeline. Suggested timeline, again, this comes back to how your learning style is. Some people, like probably myself and Mark, might be a bit impatient by the end of the summer, for example. But it can be done. I personally would recommend certificate up to 2 years. It can be done in a week, it can be done in 2 years. Keep it fresh, keep it relevant, get your exams done. And the most important bit is bring that knowledge back to your organisation or your board and apply it so that you see the real value in the programme. That's me, Natasha.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Does anyone have any other questions that we haven't answered? Because by all means, please do come on camera, because I think people are starting to move on to their next appointments. So if we haven't answered anything, please just go rogue, as they say.
Natasha, can I just ask you, you can export the chat just so we can make sure we have answered all the questions or get back to delegates if we haven't quite got to it?
Yes, absolutely. And I know people were asking about the recording. I'm happy to share the recording for those that had to leave early. Okay, so I think that's everything that we have hoped to achieve. Thank you so much for joining us. If you do want to stay on and you're not brave to ask any questions and you want the group to get a bit smaller, then we're happy to hang around for a couple of minutes to support anything. Thank you so much for your time today. And both to Jean and Mark, hugely appreciated. And I think that people have taken away a great deal. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming.